My name's still Valerie, and I teach at Daytona State. In biology, we have 5 Muslim women that work there. 3 of them are medical doctors, and they tell me horrible things that have happened to them with 911 and how uneducated people at one of the convenience stores was, and how unhappy one of the citizens in the town I live in, South Daytona, was unhappy with the woman and her husband, noticing that their child was in the back seat of a very hot car. It looked like nobody was there and the car wasn't running. And the outcome of all this was my Muslim friend and her husband were trying to take care of the baby, but when the man woke up that was there, the police said she scared him because she wore hijab. And the police came, but the way they handled it was really very poor and let the man go. But my Muslim friend and her husband knew better than that and went to the chief of police at that time. And he basically got everybody better indoctrinated to Muslim. And the 2 young officers that released the man lost their job, and the man who pulled the gun had an outstanding record. But why did my friend and her husband have to go through that when their heart was in the right place? What can we do to educate people better? I just cringe every time I hear these stories from my friends. And this is a worse one. And thank goodness they're okay, and the little baby's okay.
Valerie, thank you so much. I'm going to let you give that to Sue. I'm saying Bismillah because I'm asking God to protect my tongue from saying the wrong thing. Islam has 20,000 people in America embracing it every year. I deem by God, and this is my opinion, so I'm not giving a reference from the Quran or the Bible. We are a threat to America. America has operated on a quote-unquote Christian template for all these years, and along come these Muslims, and 20,000 people are becoming a Muslim every year in America. Churches are being sold, and they're being turned into masajid. I believe this is a big part of our problem, but let me share with you this. I was doing my master's in Islamic studies. It's called a Master of Religious Practice. I was traveling for 3 years to Leesburg, Virginia every week and working full-time for the Department of Justice. And I had 4 kids. I landed 4 minutes after the plane hit the Pentagon. I was wearing a white jalabiyah. I had a beard down to here. And if you go back into some of the old YouTube videos, you can see me, what I used to look like. I looked like what television portrayed as a terrorist. I was detained for 9 days. I was investigated by the FBI. I was investigated by the OIG. And I sat before the OIG. I was the only white imam of 10 in the United States. And I was referred by the 9 of color as a boy. And I said, if I were to call you a boy, I'd be fired. So there's a lot going on right now in the lives of Muslims that is extremely painful. A friend of mine in Orlando, somebody drove by his house, shot into the house, and it missed his head by 1 inch. My daughter in the 7th grade in a third world county called Lake County, the boys thought it would be funny to take an M80 and blow up her locker and stand up in the classroom and say all Muslims should be killed. Now, I'm a social worker, and I'm a serious one when it comes to social justice. I went to the Board of Education, and they said that's just what children do. And I said, is that what white Christian children do? Because, by the way, my wife is colored. We are an interracial marriage. People see her blue eyes and they think, oh, that's another white couple. My wife's family were reclassified in 1962 under the apartheid government because she happened to be born fair and 3 of her sisters have Brazilian blowouts every month. So we know about what they call reverse racism. I don't believe in that term. Racism is racism. But we need to do these kind of events where we look at what we have in common, where we build bridges, where we actually hold hands together and unite. Because my 5th grader chose to wear hijab. Some boys decided on the school bus they would tear it off her head and throw it out the window. When we went to the Board of Education, they said that's what kids do. My son in that same county was stabbed by a policeman, and I have to say this because of white privilege, was stabbed by a white policeman's son. When the good old boys got to the scene, they took the weapon from the scene of the accident, despite the fact that the police report said he intended to hurt my son, and they gave it to the father. The father sat in my living room and begged and pleaded, "We will pay all of your medical bills." We never heard from him after that. So we had to sue to get the medical. We almost lost our home. Do you know what the judge in Tavares said to me? It was just $60,000, folks. Yeah. Well, how do we know, Mr. Sykes, that you won't take that money and go to Saudi Arabia and buy an oil well? I said, with all respect, Your Honor, I don't think you could find an oil well anywhere in the world for $60,000. So we could probably spend until Fajr in the morning, and I could share personal stories that my family has endured. But I am not going to stop unless God stops me, because I'm going to stand up for justice. And if it's not me and it's you, I'm going to stand up for justice for you too. Thank you, Valerie, for bringing that up. I really appreciate it. It allowed me to purify myself and to get real with you and to share some real stuff that goes on in our lives. My wife, they walk up to her at the grocery store and say, "Do you speak English?" And if I happen to hear it, I walk up and say, "Actually, you don't speak English. She does speak English. I don't speak English. I speak Southern American." Other questions? Comments? Yes, take the mic, please. Thank you, Sue.
I do have a question. So when your children, it's one thing when you have to endure, the pain. But when your children have to endure that, how do you as a family work through that?
A lot of praying. I know that when God brings these things to us, they're not a mistake. They are brought to us to develop our character. So no matter what my test was, and when my life was threatened in prison, because I preached this way in prison, and I was held hostage 4 times in the prison system because I was not going to give up on justice. And they came to me and they said, "We're concerned about you, Imam Sykes. You don't seem to fear your life." And I said, because if the whole world comes together to do something to me and it's not God's intention, it's not going to happen. And if the whole world comes to prevent something from happening to me and it's God's will, they're not going to make it happen. And I said, that's how I live my life. So no, I only fear God. I'm not afraid of these inmates. But for my children and for my wife, people would really say, and I'm a therapist, I actually have a private practice. That's how I support my ministry predominantly. People would say he's a little crazy, because even when I was dying, I was thanking God. If this is your will for me, Lord, I accept it, and I don't question it because you are the all-wise. Not many people think that way, and that was tough for my kids. That was as tough as the punishments or the hate that has been meted out to them, because they just couldn't understand that I really believed that this was from God's will. And everybody that came to see me in the hospital, I just said, please forgive me. If I've done anything wrong, please forgive me. I wanted to die with a clean slate.